What you're going to get out of this video today is the value of doing something worthy of remark. What you're going to find is in this video is that you're going to extract a lot of value behind why it is that I show up the way that I show up in the space that I'm showing up in. Well, what happens is that even if you don't have 100,000 followers, 10,000 followers, or whatever the case, you have an advantage, right? Showing up and doing something that is worthy of remark puts you ahead and really gives you a leg up in terms of your competition. And so once again, as I've said in other videos, if you look into your niche and figure out who the highest engaged content creator is or local business is promoting their business on social media, you'll find that if they're not doing something worthy of remark, usually what happened in order for them to get 100,000 followers is that they had to please the algorithm. They had to work like a slave, essentially, working hard, putting in the hours. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard. Don't get me wrong, this requires effort. But what happens is that when you're placating the algorithm, all of your followers, even if you do have 100,000 followers, they don't always, 100% of them, see your content when you upload that content. You're essentially at the mercy of the algorithm when it comes to relying solely on the algorithm. But when you learn how to go into an environment and to physically do something worthy of remark, making it where people can't ignore you and they can't not go and talk to someone else about what they've experienced. What you learn in this video is the value of all that. I want you to sit tight. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. Why do we all try to pretend like... What a way to start a video off. Like, why do we all try to pretend like... I think this video is going to be a series of questions. I want to pivot the way that I do these. I want it to be totally based on what I think, okay? Why? Because I'm gonna lean more into, here's what I think would be better. I think if we just all leaned a little bit more into authenticity and expression of the self, the world would be a better place. Now, I truly do think that. Now, let's look at why it is we don't actually behave that way. Why do we go in the opposite direction and lean more so into a sort of a bullshit version of who we are? Well, rejection, for one thing, is what we're concerned about. But another thing, too, is that we're worried that we can't stand up long term to what it is that we're saying. One of the things about human nature is that whatever it is that we proclaim about ourselves, we want to be able to hang tight to that. We want to be able to long term prove that that's really what we're about, what we're doing. What's going on, brother? And if we can't do that, well, it sort of threatens our existence, right? And while you might not be thinking that way on a conscious level, subconsciously, you're afraid of being a fraud. So if what you're thinking or what you believed in or what you believe in is being challenged in any way, what happens is that you want to hide back into the group. You want to sort of ping off of what's accepted or what everyone else thinks in order to find safety. For lack of better words, cowardice. Now, while the group, where there are resources, if you think back to our most primitive phase, the early stages of mankind, we relied heavily on the group for resources, safety, and all things that were required for our survival. You relied heavily on what everybody thought because it could determine whether or not you lived to see the next day. Now, notice how I took that pause just a moment ago. It's always interesting to see how these pauses actually play out once I replay the video and listen to how things actually went. But in my head, I took too long of a pause because there was a certain word I felt like I needed to use in the moment while expressing whatever it was I needed to express about the most primitive phase of man. What I was looking for was the word distractions. Fuck them. Shelter. Why is that such a hard word to think of? But yeah, we relied on so many things. And it's funny because when I go back and listen to that video, the pause won't even really seem as though it was as long as it was. But while filming the video, it's like my consciousness is scared because everything is not what it seems, right? Especially when you live in your head. Now, when you come out of that, you can sort of really see what's going on. At least in my experience, if I sort of just take a pause and say, you know what? It's not as bad as I'm making it, right? It's not as bad as I'm making it. I will survive. I don't need the group think right now in order to see the next day. That's not the time that we live in. But because we carried some of these instincts from the time of our most prehistoric phase, or during our prehistoric phase, we took a lot of those instincts on with us because it's what we relied on in order to carry on and continue to contribute to the gene pool. So, what does that mean for us now? Why is it that I would choose to come out and present myself in such a bizarre manner? This is a compounding gown that, whether you know it or not, but something like this is what's worn by pharmacists when they're preparing your medication. Why do I know this? Well, because I have a little history in that field of work. Not a pharmacist, but I worked in a field where I was allowed to see what they did up close. And so there was a little sentiment behind me going on Amazon and choosing this as a bizarre piece of self-expression that I am going to come out and wear while I film my videos. Why am I making that decision? Well, because it sets me apart. Okay, when I step out here like this, I am now, whether everyone around me likes it or not, but I am now gaining control of a piece of everyone's mental real estate. And so whether they like what I'm doing or they don't, you can't ignore what I'm doing. So that mental real estate, why it's so valuable, is because without it, it's very hard to relay a message, isn't it? If no one's paying attention to what you're saying, it's kind of hard to relay a message, right? There's not a whole lot you could say to somebody who's not paying attention to you in the first place. So now this is a very bizarre way of doing that, getting that attention, but it's attention grabbing nonetheless. Now, what would you rather do? Would you rather spend hundreds of dollars or however much is spent when people go and they make those ads that annoyingly jump in front of your video? When you go on YouTube, I myself watch long form content. And so when I'm watching a video and out of nowhere, there's this ad that pops up and I'm like, this has nothing to do with what I came to YouTube to listen to. Now all of a sudden there's this person in my face trying to sell something. Well, they spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to jump in front of me just for me to hit skip. Well, I'd rather do it this way. Because if I got something to tell you, I want to tell you to your face whether you're listening to me or you're not. If you choose not to listen to me in real life, you can't hit skip. You got to kind of look at what I'm doing and try to figure out what's going on. I kind of stole your attention for the moment, and you kind of have to sit there and figure out what's happening. You're not just going to go, oh, there's this guy in a compounding gown that would normally be worn by a pharmacist, but oh, there's this guy wearing a compounding gown and he's walking the bar street holding a selfie stick with an NFC tag hanging off of his safety goggles. So I would rather do it that way. It's more effective. You can't be ignored that way. And if you want to be ignored, why do you have a message? Who is your message for? How do you intend to get in front of as many people as you can? Because the method that I've chosen, I can get in front of many people at one time for the cost of a lab coat, for the cost of a pair of safety glasses. I can build an asset that over time puts me in a position where I'm unforgettable. I'm seeing people out on the street that recognize me, that unfortunately I don't recognize them, but over time I'll get to know them. But at this point, I can't tell you how many people I've gotten a chance to speak to that remember me because of my ability to show up in a way that makes me worthy of remark. Now, while not on a grand scale, I would say what I'm doing is nonetheless remarkable. And this is sort of what you want. And you're not coming from a place of really needing anything, right? Well, who cares? Yeah, I need some attention. I like attention. I do. Now, it makes me nervous, but I think we all like it. And I think it makes us nervous because we're not used to what to do with it. We're not used to getting it. Now, it's the reason why most people who have an Instagram, it's a collage of pictures of themselves. We want to be seen. How many Instagram accounts do you think you'll visit and find that there's just a bunch of pictures of everyone except the person who owns the account? It's very unlikely. You have some out there because you got folks who own accounts that are just shy and they don't want their face on the internet. But by and large, everyone who has an account, when you come across that page, all you see is their face. Why? They want to be seen. But it's funny because it's like we want to be seen but not seen at the same time. Interesting how that works. Well, I said, let's do it this way. You know you want to be seen because we all have a unique message that we would like to deliver. A message that the world should hear. A message worthy of everyone's attention, no matter what your message is. So why not do it in such a way where for free, you get to earn a piece of mental real estate. That way, the next time somebody sees you, or if someone sees you again, say perhaps they didn't get to engage with you the first time they saw you, I tell you one thing, they went home and talked to somebody about you, right? And then when they get to see you again, in the off chance they do, they just might this time, because of the anticipation of seeing you again, come over and say hello and ask you what the hell is going on. Because why wouldn't they? Imagine having the courage, right? The courage to say, hey, I'm going to express myself in such a way where I can't be ignored, and then say, whether they like it or not, this is how I'm showing up. And they're gonna remember, right? Because what's the saying? How does that saying go? what does it go, like bad publicity is still good publicity? Where it's like somebody might hate what you're doing, but because they went and talked about you anyway, it was still good for business. It was still good for your cause, because now you've got reach, because you've done something that now, because you had the courage to be you in a way that can't be duplicated. Now you'll be heard. And depending on what you're doing, depending on what your market is, there's somebody out there who wants what you're doing, who wants in on your message, because you're the only one who will deliver that message wearing a lab coat. Now when they come and talk to you, because the first time that they saw you, they might have been nervous about speaking to you, because it's like, whoever this person is that has the courage to wear a compounding gown, they got to be some kind of freak. But then it's like, wait, there are other people engaging with this person and they appear to be very approachable, like I have. And so then the next time they see you and they see all these people engaging with you, it's like, okay, now's the time for me to engage. And again, figure out what's happening, because I'm missing out on something. And that's what this does. It creates a fear of missing out in the midst of hundreds of people, thousands of people who now, because they don't get the chance to engage with you, the anticipation that's built around engaging with you, the next time that they see you, they are more likely to engage with you. And now what does that do long term? If you ask me, it has a compounding effect, right? Because the more connections like that you build over time, you have buzz, right? You generate buzz. I don't know how many people have taken out their camera to take a picture of me or record me, because what I'm doing is engaging, right? Isn't that the whole purpose of getting a message out there? Is that you want to engage with as many as you can? Well, I just found a very inexpensive way to do it. A very risk-free way of doing it. Well, at the very most, people want to know what the hell you're doing, right? At the very most. But who does that hurt? Who does that hurt? Somebody with an ego. So I tell you one thing, if you're curious about how this works, or if what I've said up to this point sounds interesting enough for you to gather the courage to try it, you're gonna wanna leave your ego at home. You're gonna wanna leave your ego at home, I'm telling you, because what you feel, other people feel. And so if you're gonna let your ego get in the way of doing something like this, where you've got the courage to show up in a way that makes people stop. Isn't that the purpose of an ad? They want you to stop and hear what it is that they have to say. They want to share a message that might lead to a deeper connection later, right? So if you really want people to stop, present yourself in a way where you can't be forgotten. Be one of one and have the courage to do so. No matter what it feels like initially, I'm telling you, as easy as it might seem, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first pulled up tonight, I hyped myself up to come out tonight and do this, as I've done several nights. Some nights are easier than others, but I think I had a hard time tonight because I hyped myself up on the way here. And then as soon as I got here, it's like, I'm not feeling this. But see, that's a problem, because it's like, talk about being selfish. You're being selfish and you think that by not showing up and delivering your message, that you're only having an impact on yourself. When in reality, there's somebody out there who could benefit from the message that only you can deliver in the way that you deliver it. So I said, you know what? You're here, and what's pressing on your mind right now is a valid topic. The feeling that you don't want to do what it is that you know you should. How relatable is that? How on time of a message is that? When right now, there are hundreds of thousands of people all over the world who their New Year's resolution was probably that they were going to start taking out the camera, pressing record, and just learning how to talk to it. How relatable now is that? If you're worried, if I could talk, man, it's so cold. I need to do talking exercises before I do these. I don't know if it's cold or if I'm so in my head that my jaw locks up. That's funny. Whatever it is, we're working through it. But how on time is a message is a message like that, right? It's on time. Now, it reminds me of an anecdote that I used in another video where I said, imagine if Jordan woke up one day and said, I'm not going to be Jordan. We wouldn't have had his shoes on. I'm wearing some Hey Dudes right now, but you know all the Jordan sneakerheads that are out there that wouldn't have been able to be Jordan sneakerheads? If Jordan woke up and said, I don't really feel like it. Ah, man, what a different world it would be, right? And so, if Jordan woke up and knew that if it was going to be somebody, it should be him, what makes him any different from you? Why is it that you won't wake up today or tomorrow or the next day for the next 10 years and say, this is going to be me? It should be me. I don't want my dream to be lived by somebody else, right? Because while I'm filming right now and worried about how the video might turn out, there's somebody out there who's willing to fail forward thousands of times, whether it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and so on, until they get it right. My purpose here is to understand the ins and outs of developing a free flow to where I can speak to a camera for 30 minutes straight without the need for a script. Now, why am I doing that? Well, because in the digital world we live in, pretty much everyone and their mom wants to create content. Well, what's some of the reasons why people don't? Well, they feel like they don't have the time. What does creating content consist of? What's required in order for you to do it consistently? Or at least what most people think is required. Well, most people think that you need a script. I don't have one. And we're at minute 22. I think another thing is that people know that you got to get out there in the world and show that you're truly living. And it's not to say that you can't just film in front of a white wall, but how much attention would you hold filming in front of a white wall? How many white wall content creators are out there? And isn't that where content creation started? A boring white wall? Well, we've moved forward. We're past that. And now we have entered into the age where content creation is a lifestyle. And so the formula that I'm developing is how to save time and get it done. No need for a script, no need for preparation. But along with that, mental game changes, mental game shifts that it's going to be important to learn in order to get out here and do this in a way where you're not suffering from mental block. You're not suffering from that feeling that you've got to know what to say before you can say it. Because as I speak, I don't know if you notice, but I'm not thinking. I've detached myself from the thinking mind, and I'm just doing it. Let me ask you something. When you talk to your loved one or your family members, or if you've ever had a phone conversation that lasted an hour, were you thinking about what to say before you said it? No. Right? Like how exhausting would that be? Well, the same should be true for content creation, right? And there are some mental game shifts that if you stick with me, I'm going to share with you what it is that I've learned, what it is that I'm learning along the way, and how to go about this in a way where it doesn't have to feel like it's taking away from your life or that it requires a lot of mental bandwidth, which, funny enough, you'll be able to free up the mental bandwidth that is usually taken up by the anxiety of what to say. And now, because you have so much of that mental bandwidth back, you can talk and talk and talk with ease in a way that's calm, in a way where you can offer value, in a way where you need nothing, in a way where you can film this video and you have an aura about you where everyone can feel that you could just put this camera down at any time and say, I'm not filming today. Obviously, you're gonna film still, but you're gonna do it in a way where you don't feel like you need to. And how much more engaging is that, where you're watching somebody and you can tell that they're having fun doing it, that they don't need it to be excellent because they're already that. You can tell that they believe that they're already that. And because they're filming in a way where you can tell that they believe that they're already excellent, that the words that they need are already at the tip of their tongue, you're that much more excited to hear the next thing that they have to say. So again, if you stick with me long enough, I'm going to share with you the tools that I've learned along the way in order to make content much more engaging, again, without a script, without preparation, but to be able to talk in a way where you're just relaying your experience. You already have a message. That message is already deep within you. You just have to get out of your way. And if I haven't said it already, which I believe I have, but if you haven't heard me say it, I'm going to have a link to some tools. It'll be a downloadable free digital product in exchange for your email that if you download this tool or this set of tools, you'll be that much closer to, again, being able to speak to a camera for 30 minutes straight without having to think about the next word to say. And when you start to see these results, you'll start to realize just how interesting the mind really is. You start to realize how in your own way you've been for so long. And this can finally be the last time you make a New Year's resolution to film content, as you know you should have been. So guys, we're at minute 28. I'm gonna stretch it 2 more minutes and see if I can actively use the tools that I've learned along the way to just keep talking. So, what is your message? What message is it that's already deep within you? What's that thing that you could just talk about and talk about continuously in such a way where somebody would have to tell you to just stop talking, or where you know that what it is you have to say, you could only be amongst a group of people who are genuinely invested in what it is that you're interested in. This is who your audience would be anyway. So just imagine you're in a room full of those people. What would you say to them? What would you be talking about? What is it you would be on the phone with somebody speaking for 2 hours straight about? What is it you can go on about that pulls you in such a way where it's a pleasure, where you're elated to just go on and on about? This is the same thing that should inspire your content creation. It's just that most of us don't realize this because we feel that anyone creating content has to be a guru, when many of the gurus didn't start out as gurus. They started out sharing their experience and sharing what they've learned along the way, until now we have deemed them gurus. So more of that in future videos. Got more to come. Stay with me. Wish I had some light at the end of this. But hey, we'll be back with more. Peace.